Hey guys, welcome back. It's your host and nutritionist, Marissa Laughlin here, bringing you season 3 of the Wellness on Purpose podcast. Here at the Wellness on Purpose podcast, we appreciate that there is no linear path along one's wellness journey and understand how easy it can be to get caught up in the latest health trends found on social media. Our intention is to provide you with impactful, educational, and realistic information to help you progress on your journey to live wellness on purpose now and for future generations. This season, we have so many amazing guests lined up to help educate, support, inspire, and motivate you to prioritize your wellness journey in 2021. First up, we are interviewing Amber Lynn Vitale, who is a certified nutritionist and product educator with Garden of Life. Did you guys know that not all supplements are created equally? In this episode, Amber and I are going to dive deep into Garden of Life as a brand, the principles that they stand behind, and the certifications that they invest in to produce the highest quality product that's on the market for you. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how you could benefit from taking a protein powder, how to choose the best one for you, the difference between plant-based proteins versus whey proteins, how much protein the body actually requires, and the process of how Garden of Life makes their protein powder very digestible. So without further ado, let's welcome our first guest of season 3. Hello, Amber.
Well, thank you so much. I'm Amber Lynn Vitale. I have a background as a nutritionist, holistic nutritionist here in the United States, which started in really about 1996, I would say. So I've always loved food. I've loved food as medicine, and the power of herbs and nutrition has fascinated me for years. So it's been amazing to work with Garden of Life since 2014, educating bigger groups of people about their health, about how their bodies work, and about how our supplements can really augment what they're getting from food.
So how did you come across Garden of Life? Was it through your practice or just through what you saw it kind of in that health and wellness market, or how did you come across Garden of Life many years ago?
Yeah, it was through my practice, actually. And a lot of the early products that Garden of Life had were so food-like that you almost couldn't recognize them as supplements, Super Seed and the original Perfect Food and fibers and, these like primal defense type probiotics. So it was, I was coming to it from more of a practitioner line of products that are just white powders in capsule form, So it was something that was so uniquely different, and that really attracted me very early on. Do we really have to reduce vitamins and minerals to an isolated powder to be effective with people, or can we use food concentrates? Was really what I wanted to explore.
That's amazing. So can you give our listeners a little bit of a background about Garden of Life and really their key values in the company as well?
Absolutely. I mean, our first value, which is overarching, and sometimes we forget to even mention it, is that we want what we make to be effective. So, the umbrella over everything is let's make something that really moves the needle of wellness for people, right? And then when we're formulating a new product, our ideal goal is to start with whole foods, and for those whole foods to be both certified organic and non-GMO project verified. So whenever possible, those three things are our guiding lights and what we adhere to in product development. We do go off course from that when it's necessary. I mean, like fish oil is a great example. It's hard to find certified organic fish oil. It's coming from a whole food, but it's not, ground up fish, right? So that's an area where, non-GMO project verification becomes really important. So when we look at these three guiding lights and we try to satisfy as many of them as possible, we know that we have overarching third-party verification on the cleanliness of our supply chain. And that's really what we're after.
So can you describe the difference between actually what a whole food supplement product is versus, say, a standardized vitamin B that's on the shelf? Like when you're hearing that word whole food, what are our listeners actually getting from a product that's from Whole Foods?
You've just touched on something that is really, really important to me and where I get on my soapbox a lot because I think labels can be so confusing to, especially to the consumer, but even to us as nutritionists. If we see fruits and vegetables in pictures on a label of a supplement, we tend to think that what's in there is coming from that. So if we're talking about your example, like B12, B12 is actually a difficult one. You can't actually just, extract it from plant material. We can get it in liver supplements. So like if we desiccated liver, we would be able to get it. Microorganisms make it. And so to make a whole food B12, we have to go the microorganism route. And another example for us would be like folates. Folic acid is the laboratory produced form of that vitamin, but in food, it comes as folates. And there are, I don't know, is it 9 or 11 different forms of folates that we would find in food. And so when we make, for example, our My Kind line of vitamin, we're actually using certain plants that are high in folates. Lemon peel is one of them, and extracting and standardizing to those folates in that food. And that's just not something that's been done historically. It's just much cheaper and much easier to make vitamins from petrochemicals, really, in a laboratory. And that's how most of them have been made, even in some of the really good practitioner lines, because the focus is just on efficacy and not on sourcing and sustainability.
Yes. Now, when someone looks at a whole food based supplement, one of the biggest questions that I get is the dosage on it. Like if you looked at a whole food based dosage, sometimes it seems much lower than those more synthetically made vitamins on the shelf. Can you explain the difference between the absorption rate of a whole foods and how that would look different in the sense of dosage?
That's a great question, Melissa, and it's like there's so many aspects to it. So, number one, humans living a natural life, we always used to just eat, right? And it's only been a short period of time that we've used this kind of supplement that is synthesized into one or maybe two forms of a vitamin or one form of a mineral. A mineral like, zinc, for example, is a metal, and it has to be treated with acid to be broken down into small enough components to have any absorption in the body. But that's not the way you get it in food, right? In food, you get it bound up to certain other compounds. Zinc, for example, is great bound up to proteins or amino acids in our food. And so while you can take something, let me take a simple example like vitamin C. The synthetic version made chemically from starches and sugars, like corn typically, is ascorbic acid, which is really just a part of the whole vitamin C compound. That ascorbic acid absolutely will absorb quickly from your gut into your bloodstream because it's small and it's not really attached to anything. It will absorb more quickly than if you ate an orange, for example. However, it will also be eliminated very quickly. And because it gets eliminated very quickly, and a lot of it doesn't get taken up into your tissues, you have to take a lot more. So we tend to see 1,000 milligram doses of vitamin C or ascorbic acid, as opposed to 50 and 100 milligram doses of whole food vitamin C that has been concentrated from real fruits or real vegetables and botanicals.
Okay. So, one other thing that Garden of Life touches on when they're looking at those whole food products and ingredients to make different formulas is the traceability of the ingredients that you're looking at, as well as the clean aspects of the ingredients. Now, does that play a role in being an important piece of getting certifications on your products or not?
It does. And I mean, if I get raging about anything on social media, it's about fake circles and squares. I just cannot stand fake certifications because when a company puts a stamp, like a seal, a round seal or a square or a triangle or something on their product, the customer typically says, oh, that's a certification, but it's likely that it's just a statement. So like if a statement says no GMOs, that's not a certification. You have to have a particular seal that is authorized by a third party certifying body that has produced audits on the raw materials. So great examples, the USDA certified organic seal is a great example. And there's some reciprocity between the US and Canada with that. The non-GMO project seal is all of North America. And that is a very, very elaborate auditing process on everything that goes into that product, all the way back to the seed, that even back to the seed that grew the plant that fed the animal that made the whey protein. You know, it's that deep of an audit. NSF is an important certifier for us, both, it can be many areas, gluten-free, for sport and substances that are banned for sports. You know, the vegan certification, it's not just, hey, this is a vegan product, it's that there's a authorized and expert organization that knows what it means to be vegan and certifies something to be vegan. You know, gluten-free has to be by testing, dairy-free has to be by testing now, soy-free has to be by testing now. So, you know, these are all very powerful audits and certifications that really do mean something. So it's important to really look up what seals, in quotation marks, you see on a product that you're going to buy if you're really concerned about the cleanliness and traceability of that supply chain.
Now, you can find pretty much most of these certifications on all of the Garden of Life products, which is amazing. And I think it really stands to really highlight Garden of Life as a brand, really investing, because I will note to the listeners, when a product has a certification like USDA or any type of B Corp, green energy, non-GMO, you're paying for these certifications. It's not just send your sample off, get tested, hope for the best, and get audited. It's that the companies are investing their money into these certifications to make sure that you're getting the best product that you can get on the market with the values of the company, like traceability, right? Like, as you said, from the seed that's planted for the food that feeds the cow for the whey and so on. It's a very deep line of auditing, and it takes a lot of money. So I think it stands by the company that's willing to invest in that for the consumer as well. And one of the biggest products of Garden of Life that I really love to promote is the protein lines, especially because there is that sports certification that comes with it. And I know personally in Peterborough, we have some athletes and they're really looking for those types of certifications. So can you tell us what products that Garden of Life has that are protein powders?
Absolutely. Well, we have a lot, and Canada has some of them. So, you know, we have our raw, our organic protein, our basic protein, and that also goes into the all-in-one. And that's a combination of pea protein and then sprouted grain, seeds, and legumes. And so that sets the stage for what is important in a protein supplement that is from plants. First, you're starting with whole food. It's certified organic whole food and non-GMO project verified whole food. And we don't use grains that contain gluten. And from there, how you treat these storage proteins, which is what any seed is, and beans are a storage protein, seeds are a storage protein, nuts are a storage protein, grains are a storage protein. So they don't want to be digested. They want to pass through the digestive tract and be planted somewhere else and sprout a new plant. So just like you know, really wholesome food preparation, you have to soak and sprout and even maybe ferment in order to really get the nutrition out of those storage proteins. Soaking is an absolute necessity. So our proteins, like the pea protein, is soaked and soaked and soaked so much. Think of making hummus. You have to soak those garbanzo beans so much that you can grind them into a paste. Well, these peas have to be ground into like a slurry so that they can just be centrifuged. So the protein and the starch just separate. So imagine how much soaking time that is. And that inactivates all of these enzyme inhibitors and allows you to digest this protein and extract the amino acids from it. With the other grain, seeds, and legumes, they're always soaked and sprouted. That's always been our method. And so throughout our proteins into the protein in greens, which is combined with some alfalfa grass juice powder and some veggie and fruit powders, and into our sport proteins, which is also pea and navy lentil garbanzo bean and cranberry seed protein, same story. And you get into whey protein. Interestingly enough, it's much less difficult with whey protein. It's really just about milking the cow, separating the whey in cheese making, and then concentrating, so pulling off some of the water and then spray drying it. It's actually simpler to make whey protein than it is to make plant proteins. But your supply chain is a little bit more difficult because you have to look at what that cow ate.
Who would benefit from taking a protein powder?
Well, athletes, as you mentioned, but there are tons of things that athletes are afraid of. If you're a college athlete, a professional athlete, an Olympic athlete, most of the ones I've heard from never even took supplements because they were so afraid that they'd get their blood or urine test and something would flag and they wouldn't even have known that they were consuming it. So anything that says enhances endurance, enhances performance, makes them just back away. So these bodies, NSF and Informed Choice for Sport, actually test products for any of those metabolites, but they also look at what goes into the products and can certify that there's nothing to worry about in these products. So that's great because an athlete definitely needs extra protein. So does somebody who's recovering from an injury. A lot of our teenagers, like my son right now, he's 14 and he started lifting weights. So, I mean, he went from 2 eggs in the morning to 5. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, how am I going to keep up with this, right? So a supplement is a great option. And then elderly people really benefit from protein supplements because they're typically easier to digest than a bowl of, quinoa and kidney beans, or even eating cheese or a steak. Elderly people's hydrochloric acid production has reduced, their enzyme production has reduced. They're typically not as inclined necessarily to cook full meals for themselves. So their absorption of amino acids is low. So a protein supplement can be really important. Most of us in North America get plenty of protein. It's whether or not we're actually digesting and absorbing those nutrients and making a difference in our body composition, right?
Yes, absolutely. I see that a lot in my practice as well. Anyone who does have a compromised digestion, you could be eating all of the protein rich foods, but if you're unable to digest it, it's not benefiting you in its full capacity. Where as a protein powder that has been soaked and sprouted and possibly fermented and then also separated in an effective way that is easy for you to digest, you're really just benefiting the body and so much more for recovery, for energy, for managing weight. Is there any other benefits you want to talk about that our listeners would be interested in?
Absolutely. I mean, from childhood, for me, I always suffered from what seemed like hypoglycemia. I'd stand up and get faint. If I got hungry, I'd be hangry. So I learned very early on to have protein at every meal and have protein snacks, not carbohydrate rich snacks. So protein actually suppresses a hormone that makes you feel hungry called ghrelin. And so having protein in your meals improves satiety and you feel less hungry. And it also helps because it takes a little bit longer to digest than, say, a bagel. You have a longer release of energy. And so protein and fat are great for people who have blood sugar balancing issues, both too high and too low, because it helps to stabilize the blood sugar. So even in our products that we call like weight loss products, like our fit products, we really are not trying to just rev up your metabolism. What we're trying to do is improve your blood sugar balance. And that then limits your cravings and puts you in the position to make better food choices. That's really what it's always about.
Yes, stabilizing blood sugar is so important. I see this so often in practice, and I'm sure you do as well, is when people come to me and look for that magic answer or the magic pill, I say, you've got to make sure you're consuming enough protein for your hunger hormones, for balancing your hormones in general, for energy. Protein is just so incredibly important. And I know one question I get a lot is how much does your body actually require of protein? Did you want to elaborate maybe on that?
Ooh, yeah, so it's great because I'm talking with Canada, so I can use kilograms. The typical statement that we kind of stick to is that a minimum of zero point 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. But that goes up easily to like 1.5 grams per kilogram or more if you're an athlete, if you have poor digestion, if you have injuries that you need to heal, if you're going through an illness, for example. So there's a range. And I think people are always worried, well, am I going to get too much protein? And that's kind of a question for a practice. And maybe you want to speak to that. What is too much protein? Mostly we see that people just aren't digesting it well enough. They're not getting it where it's supposed to go, or they're not timing it properly. So protein when you're hungry is the great time to eat it. You know how like if you're starving, or you feel like you're starving, none of us are really starving, and you eat a 16-ounce steak, it's just gone. But if you really weren't that hungry, it just feels like so much to eat. So it's when you're really hungry, protein is really easily digested. How getting too much, yes, it can put a burden on the kidneys, but typically, it's only people who already have reduced kidney function that have to watch that, and those are specific situations.
I completely agree. I think I get that question a lot. Well, if I take a protein powder, is it going to be too much? And it really comes down to the digestion factor. And we require protein for so many things. And, just even simple daily tasks like your routine, getting up in the morning, doing just your regular showering, getting dressed, like you're using energy and in your muscles and everything for that. So we require protein just to do our daily functions. And then on top of that, if people are having a busy lifestyle, they're working out, going to the gym, going on walks, if they're very stressed as well, they're going to require protein to help the body just do those daily tasks. So it's very rare, as you said, that I have ever seen someone get too much unless there is some type of kidney dysfunction that's going on. But in that case, even a lot of times, you're working with a practitioner or a medical doctor to manage that. So when it comes to protein powder, I think it's a safe bet for most people and a smart idea for most people to be consuming as well. But I know that also as a consumer, there's a lot of options. So specifically at Joanne's Place with the Garden of Life line, we have the raw protein, the all-in-one, and then the sports line. So the vegan and the whey protein. So let's start by talking about the difference between the raw, the all-in-one, and the sports on the vegan side.
Okay, so the raw protein and the all-in-one have the same protein base. So that pea protein and the sprouted grain seeds and legumes that are gluten-free. Another 13 grain seeds and legumes like millet and amaranth and quinoa that make up the rest of that blend. The all-in-one also includes grass juice powders and vegetable juice powders, some vitamins and minerals, and always we include a probiotic because, again, digestibility is key for us. We want your digestive system to be working, and probiotics and microorganisms are what makes that happen. So that is always our goal. And so in the raw protein, you're getting 22 grams of protein per scoop. The all-in-one, you get 20 per scoop. The vegan sport protein, you actually get 30 grams per scoop. And so the sport protein's a little bit simpler. It really just has a few ingredients, the sprouted navy lentil garbanzo bean, the soaked pea and cranberry seed protein. And it's very smooth and delicious. And it's just labeled for an athlete who's saying, I need a certain amount of branched chain amino acids. And branched chain amino acids are the ones that they're called leucine, isoleucine, and valine, if we want to get nerdy about it. And they're the ones that go pretty much once they get in your bloodstream straight to your muscles. So a lot of athletes like this before or during or after a workout because they go straight to muscle repair and building a stronger muscle or a bigger muscle if that's what they're after. That really depends on how they're working out. And so the sport protein is geared toward that in the amount of protein that we put in it and how it's labeled and the dosage. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't use it if you prefer it, even if you're not an athlete, if you just have a normal life. And the way I view protein powders, it's something in your toolbox. If you have a protein supplement in your cupboard and you're hungry and you're about to go for, some cookies, make yourself a protein shake. So it's a tool. That's a good time to use it. If you're too busy to get lunch, too busy to get breakfast, make yourself a protein shake. If you are working out, then you use it in very specific timing. We tend to say that the sport protein, the plant or the whey, that ideally for good nutrient timing in an athletic or a sport endeavor is shortly after your workout, or for some people, it just kind of depends on how you work out. You kind of want it to be in your system within an hour after your workout. And the whey protein still is the fastest digested and fastest absorbed for people who tolerate whey. Plant proteins are always trying to approximate, by the inclusion of proper amino acids and the way that they're processed, how easily whey is digested and absorbed. And so it's good to have those vegan options, but a lot of athletes who are omnivores, they tend to still choose that whey protein.
Okay. Now, aside from digestion being better on the whey side versus the plant, would you say that there's any other nutritional differences between choosing a plant-based protein versus a whey-based protein?
There are pros on both sides. So a whey protein, for years, of course, and you know this too, we've said, oh, whey is a complete protein. I question that now because we have all these collagen peptides on the market, and you start to realize that whey protein is a lot like having a lean chicken breast or a fillet of steak or a fillet of fish and not eating the skin. So we realized that in a natural life, if we chose an animal protein, we'd ultimately eat the whole animal. And that's just not how we live today, right? So whey protein is more complete than any individual plant protein. It has not just all the amino acids you need, but in ratios that allow you to build complete protein structures like hormones and enzymes and neurotransmitters and muscles and tendons and ligaments and all of the things that you need in your body. So you're rebuilding tissue, repairing tissue, and growing more tissue. So whey protein is great for that. And as long as you tolerate whey, it's actually very low in casein and very low in lactose. So it's more along the lines of yogurt in its digestibility for most people. Plant proteins, what's beautiful about them, and if you look at the labels, you can often see this, is that there's a host of micronutrients. There's manganese and zinc and molybdenum and selenium that come along for the ride because you're concentrating these plants. It takes like a bag of some kind of plant protein, like a quinoa or rice or peas, to make a scoop of plant protein. So it's very, very concentrated, and those minerals come along for the ride. So it's highly nutritious and a good form of those minerals and vitamins, which is really nice. And you don't see as many of those in the whey protein, because that has gone into other products as well. So, pros on both sides, and it's really a question of what people digest the best.
You've probably had this question before, at least I do all the time, is between a plant-based protein versus a whey-based protein, which is more sustainable to consume on an environmental aspect?
That is a very, very challenging question to answer. It actually has become so politicized, at least here in the United States, and I'm sure in Canada too. For decades, we've had people writing books and giving lectures on, the diet for a small planet, plant-based sustainability. I feel like, we all need, for our own health and for the planet as well, to be plant-based. But properly raised animal proteins actually can be a part of a very balanced ecosystem because they've kind of always been here and humans have kind of always hunted them. living in Montana, I'm sort of living very close to that ideal right now. I can't actually get good grass growing out in my pasture if I don't have animals out there grazing and processing that plant material through the digestive tract and leaving their manure and trampling it in. I actually, my fields won't grow very well. So there's a cycle to adhere to. It's the large factory farms of animals that we want to avoid, just like we want to avoid large scale monocropping in growing our plants. Both models, whether for plant or animal, on a large scale monocropping or mono husbandry of animals is decimating to the environment. It's the scale. So whenever possible, so example for our whey protein, we're sourcing from Ireland, from small farms of no more than 100 cows, per farm, and typically 150 acres per farm. And with the plants, we're sourcing from multiple small farmers. Like our pea protein, we're sourcing from Alberta, Canada, and from Iowa. And it's actually pretty hard to get a lot of certified organic pea protein. And so the organic scale, while not always smaller, is typically smaller than the conventional scale. And with animal proteins, it's definitely smaller because you just don't have the massive factory farms when you're looking at certified organic and non-GMO project verified operations.
Yes, absolutely. And I hope, and I'm sure you do as well, I know a lot of people in the health and wellness industry are, looking forward to the day when it's more the norm to have organic certifications on dairy products and cows and protein powders and things like that, as much as we do in the plant side, because I love that you've really touched on that there's a balance in both ecosystems and both are important. And it has become such a controversial topic. And sometimes it's a little scared to talk about it because there's so much opinion and belief around it. But there's a proper way to do it. And I think that's what's amazing about Garden of Life is that they are investing in the right certifications and the right raw materials to make these products for our consumers to have the best product that they can, with the great backing of the certifications, right from the seed to the grass to the cow and all of that. So when our consumers are coming in and looking at the Garden of Life products, could you just tell us who would benefit from picking the raw versus the all-in-one? Like, how would someone decide between those two products on which would be more suitable for them?
So if you're just looking for a protein powder and you already take a multivitamin and you already juice some greens or pick up a green juice along the way, or then the raw protein is fine for you. And it's as I said, it's about 22 grams of protein, and of that, if I remember, it's like, I don't know, 3.7 grams of branched chain amino acids. And so the all-in-one gives you a little bit of that green juice in there. It gives you vitamins, some vitamins and minerals. So if you just aren't taking a multi or don't, you just kind of want to do it all at once, you need a little bit more, there's more fiber in there as well. So all-in-one is more like a full smoothie, a full meal, if you're trying to grab something on the go. The sport protein, the plant-based, it can be used the same way as the raw protein, and it's really a question of preference, but the sport plant-based protein is a little bit higher calorie, higher in protein, higher in branched chain amino acids for that purpose. So it can carry you a little bit further, which is great. And the whey protein is great for athletes, but it's also, as I said, super digestible. I recommend it all the time for elderly people because the whey protein isolate very easily gets into the bloodstream from the digestive tract. So it also tastes more like a typical milkshake or chocolate milk or vanilla milk. It has that more usual flavor that somebody who might not be used to protein powder supplements would be looking for. And it does, it tastes amazing. The other thing about the whey that I wanted to mention is the grass-fed certification. Here in the US and probably in Canada, you see grass-fed on everything. You see it on all whey proteins, you see it on all bone broths, you see it on all collagen products, but it really doesn't mean anything. People put that on there, as a marketing ploy. And I really know now, living in Montana, what grass-fed means and what can be accomplished with that. And it's based on climate, and it's based upon how much land you have for each animal. So really being grass-fed means that you are feeding them the same stuff, but dried or pickled, augmented with other forage all year long, even if it's not that they're grazing it fresh. So yeah, Ireland has pretty fresh grass most of the year, but they do slow down at certain times, and they do maybe have to supplement something that they rolled up from previous harvests. But really, the animals should be free. And with dairy cows, the only time they're not is when they're coming in for milking, or when they're coming in for calving, or if it's really inclement weather or they're not well. And so we have this truly grass-fed Celtic cow sort of label that comes from the Sustainability Board of Ireland. Certification is now also under a Greener World, AGW, grass-fed certification for North America. So it's a double certification on grass-fed. So looking for certifications on grass-fed is difficult. And so I love, love, love that our whey protein has that double cert from both Ireland and their sustainability concerns, and North America and our sustainability concerns. And at the root, that's really what we're most interested in, is creating the most sustainable supply chain for any product that we put out there, and then helping you, the consumer, choose which product among those is going to suit your health needs the best.
I think it's so interesting when we talk about grass-fed, because it is one of those terms that looks great as a marketing standpoint, but what's really important is the certification, like you said. So thanks for touching on that. To wrap up this podcast, I would love to share with our listeners some of our favorite options for protein powders. So for my side, I absolutely love to recommend the all-in-one chocolate. I really like to mix that with just a banana, some almond milk. I like to keep it simple because I love that the all-in-one has everything already in it. I don't have to think about anything. I trust that it's ready to go. I just pop it in the blender and I'm fueled for my morning. So would you like to share with our listeners how you use the Garden of Life protein powders?
I would love to. This is perfect because we're on the ends of the spectrum, which is great. And I used the plant proteins, from the beginning with Garden of Life, but I've really settled, and my whole family has settled on the whey protein. We like, when we use a greens powder, to have a lot of it. So I'm inclined to take a scoop of the whey protein. Chocolate tastes so good. And then add a whole scoop of our great greens, grass juice powders and fruit and veggie juice powders, so that I'm getting a big dose of those veggies and a nice dose of protein. And that's typically, what we focus on. I might add a squirt of MCT oil too, because even with your all-in-one, adding a little bit fat makes it even more like a meal and more well-rounded, but only if you're good at digesting protein and fat together. That's the only time you want to do that.
Everyone's so unique. There's so many things when it comes to digestion, when pairing and food combining, but it's a lot of figuring that out for yourself, or figuring that out with a practitioner as well too. But I think just starting with a protein powder, especially coming into this new year, having some new goals in place, and just trying to really focus on staying healthy, because I think it's incredibly important to be prioritizing your health this year. And I think it's important to make sure that protein is a big aspect of that. So I hope that everyone that's listening right now is on their way to get their protein powder and are going to start incorporating that into their daily routine. So I really want to thank you so much for taking time today, Amber, to join us and to share about the amazing Garden of Life products, not just the protein powders, but the My Kind line, and really talking about the certification, because I think that's what is very unique about Garden of Life, is that you guys really invest in the certifications to make sure you have the best products on the market for the consumers. And I really am happy that we were able to talk about that today.
Well, thank you so much for featuring us. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity to share my passion with Garden of Life for all those same reasons. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in and prioritizing your wellness journey with us. You know what to do. Subscribe to our channel, share on social media that you're listening to the Wellness on Purpose podcast, and stay tuned for the next episode.